Hello and welcome to the Sunday service for the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola. Our congregation reflects an area along the Florida Panhandle and the Alabama Gulf Coast, and in today's world, from anywhere that you choose to join us. I am Reverend Alice Syltie, and it is my honor and pleasure to serve this congregation as minister, a congregation whose mission is to celebrate diversity, strive for justice, and inspire love. If you would like to learn more about our congregation, please feel free to reach out. I would love to talk with you. It's good to be together today.
Chalice lighting words this morning are Determined Seed by Laura Wallace. As frozen earth holds the determined seed, this sacred space holds our weariness, our worry, our laughter, and our celebration. Let us bring seed and soul into the light of thought, the warmth of community, and the hope of love. Let us see together, hear together, love together. Let us worship.
This is Peace, which is adapted from the pupils of the Lincoln School. Peace. Peace means the beginning of a new world. It means the nations are friends. It means joy to the world. Peace is quiet and calm. It is rest. It is silence after a storm. It is love and friendship. It is the world's dream of dreams. Peace brings comfort and happiness. It brings bread to the hungry. It brings prosperity to the nations. It means the strong respect the weak. The great respect the small. The many respect the few. It is like spring after winter. It brings sunshine into the world. It is like music, sweet music, after harsh sounds.
Please join me in the words to our church covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. The candles that you see reflect the joys and sorrows of our people. One candle is for Carol Trotter, who became ill while visiting her daughter over the Christmas holidays and remains in a hospital near her daughter, recovering from an infection. Another candle is a celebration of the birthday for Bob Williams. Happy birthday, Bob. As always, there are joys and sorrows that remain in our hearts yet unspoken, and one candle is for those.
My life goes on in endless song of progress, lamentation. I hear the real from far off here that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? When though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. When though the darkness round me grows, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to the rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To Christus and Angela, our falls to them are weeping. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
From January 6th until January 20th, we held our breath. With 4 years of divisive rhetoric destined to destroy our trust in an essential component of a government for the people, by the people, the free press, a significant portion of our country's population became convinced of an underlying plot to rob them of their safety, their freedom, and their hard-earned wealth, in order that everyone should have exactly the same amount. Convinced that the truth came only from certain voices or sources, it was a short distance from "you can't trust the corrupt politicians in the swamp" to "they stole the election." We won by a landslide. We've got to take back our country. I'm going with you. We'll do this together to save our country from oppressive forces and communism. A people enraged by what they believed was the truth, their fear taking over, inspired by the chosen leader, a leader they trusted, headed to the building that symbolized everything most of us, even through our disagreements, hold dear. The place where to this group, the other side, was about to confirm the results of an election they truly believed had been unfairly stolen. With right on their side, they were going to take back that which they believed they were truly entitled. A justified war, a revolution to right the wrongs. In the end, 5 people died, a cherished building was desecrated, hearts were shattered. From that day, we held our breath. An inauguration of a new president was due to take place on that very ground in just a few days. Would they return? How many of them would there be? Would it be a national horror on the day we have come to take for granted will be a peaceful transition of power? Another hallmark of democracy. The new president insisted that the inauguration would take place as it always had, that we would not be cowed, we would endure and persevere. Our democracy would not be taken down. The guards came, the city was surrounded, a fortress was built around our democracy. With fear and trepidation, with guards patrolling from the edges of the city to the tops of the buildings, we held our breath. At what point did you realize you were breathing again? For me, it was when Lady Gaga sang, "And the flag was still there," and it was. Mostly I hear that song in all kinds of strange renditions at ball games. But this time, it was sung movingly and reverently in a ceremony capturing the best of who we are and who we aspire to be. Typically, I'm not a person who gets swept up in flag-waving ceremonies. For some reason, my father, who was a career Navy man, served in World War II in Korea, was not one to wave flags or get caught up in shows of patriotism. He was one who worked all the years I shared with him on creating more justice wherever he could, and on living the principles inherent in our democracy and in our Unitarian Universalist heritage and faith, as was modeled for me. That day, the first ever woman vice president was sworn in. Not only is she a woman, she is Black and South Asian. A new president was sworn in. Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo, sang with power and purpose, shouting out at one point in Spanish, "Una nación bajo Dios indivisible con libertad y justicia para todos." One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A prayerful, amazing grace. Amazing grace, I once was blind, but now I see. Oh, pray that it be so. From Garth Brooks, a self-labeled Republican country music singer. And then the poet, Amanda Gorman, who spoke to us with her amazing grace, telling us being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. From the oldest president to ever take the oath of office to the youngest inaugural poet, the stage was filled with people breaking barriers and representing the diversity we strive for as a nation and that we celebrate as a congregation. We cried and felt our breath again. Yes, there are still many unanswered questions and challenges to face. But that day happened. That day we saw what we aspire to see across our nation, the very best of who we are as a people united by shared values, a shared ideal, a society where all people are valued and granted the opportunity not only to survive, but to thrive. That day, we saw that we do have the ability to stay the course, to change the tone. The words of the new president were inclusive and calming. The ceremony that took place was recognizable as how a people comport themselves in a solemn ceremony in service to our country. That day, we heard the words with the power to inspire goodness and mercy. Words that remind us of the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and that justice, equity, and compassion in human relations matters. That the values inherent in our Unitarian Universalist faith are also the values exemplified when our country and our government is at its best. That day did not erase the knowledge that deep differences exist across our land, that we have huge areas of disagreement, and that people are scared. That years of injustice have caused pain and rage, that the environment in which we grow up influences what we think and see and believe. Some of us live with a sense of injustice, and some with a sense of entitlement. The National Coalition Building Institute, an international leadership organization that provides training in diversity, equity, and inclusion, whose training I've taken, teaches that we get our bias or our prejudice with our cornflakes. What have we been fed? And what are we feeding others? Ruby Bridges was that 6-year-old girl painted by Norman Rockwell, who was escorted into school by U.S. Marshals at the William Frantz Elementary School in New Orleans on November 14, 1960. That picture by Norman Rockwell is now the iconic representation in the larger picture of Vice President Kamala Harris walking alongside the shadow of 6-year-old Ruby Bridges. In a recent interview with Ruby Bridges, she explained that when she was that little girl being escorted into the school, she had no idea what was going on around her. Her mother had told her, "Ruby, you're going to a new school and you better behave." And that's what she was focused on, behaving. So, growing up in New Orleans, the people crowded around yelling, throwing things, looked to her like a Mardi Gras parade as she walked into that school that day, escorted by marshals. "Hate is taught," she said. "Babies don't come into the world thinking they won't be liked. They get it with their cornflakes." On January 20, we had a glimpse of all the ways that we are good and strong and resilient, of all the ways also that we are fragile. We remember that America is a young country, and as Amanda Gordon said, somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We know that we have struggles ahead. We pray with all our hearts and souls and minds that we will be up to the task, that we as Unitarian Universalists will continue with our place in this journey, in this living tradition, in this challenge, in this struggle. Each of us finding our own way, using our own unique gifts, talents, strengths, callings to live out our values in the world. A church community is a great place to discover and develop those gifts. How many of you discovered the joy of serving, sharing the gifts you have that make life better for others within this beloved community? I know I grew and learned those things in the churches in which I grew up. Whether you create memories and delight our senses with your wonderfully delicious baked goods, or chair or serve on one of our many ministry teams, lead our young people in the knowledge and understanding of our Unitarian Universalist heritage and history, tradition, faith, purposes, principles. Whether you serve on the board, organize or assist in our fundraisers, contribute to the annual budget to the best of your ability, however it is that you give generously of your resources in support of all that we aspire to be, you contribute not only to your own growth and development, but to the mission of our congregation and to its honest desire to be a place where people come together to celebrate diversity, strive for justice, and inspire love. It is here in this community that we build together, that we learn and practice how to be the best we can be. We learn how to do it with one another as practice for how to do it in the places where it's way more difficult. Throughout this pandemic and this political struggle, we have been affected, each of us, in different ways. There are so many unanswered questions, and it's scary. Will we make it through? Through the pandemic? Through the disagreements and division, not only in our country, but within our families for some of us, and with our friends. There's absolutely no shame in feeling lonely, scared, or vulnerable right now. We have one another, though, and a community that shares its joys and sorrows, its needs and its gifts. Can we make it? Yes, we can. It will take less talk and more listening than your typical Unitarian Universalist is comfortable with. And it will take listening in a new way, not just to others, but also to ourselves. What are we telling ourselves about this situation? What are we telling ourselves about the people who think differently from us? How are we asking the questions we ask? That day, that inauguration day, we had a glimpse of the very best shining through. We have heard the voices of beauty and goodness and seen our capacity for strength and resilience. Amanda ended her poem with these words: "There is always light, if only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it." Throughout the last few months, we have thought and sung about this little light in us. The light we hope will shine, bringing clarity to the way forward in truth and beauty and goodness. A light to reveal that which is worthy of our greatest commitment, a nation indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May that little light shine now and always. Because it is your generosity that keeps this church alive and well, I offer you now the information for how to contribute by text or by writing a check and mailing it to the address of the church. Many thanks to all of you who care enough to share your resources with this congregation. to remind you that at 12:30 today, when we normally have coffee hour, we will be having our annual mid-year congregational meeting on Zoom. So you should have received an email with information from Lauren, our church president, about the meeting and the invitation for how to access the Zoom meeting. I hope everyone will come. You'll be hearing reports from our board and important information about our congregation, and it's just a great time to be together to celebrate this wonderful community that we are building together. So I look forward to seeing all of your faces, or if your face is not on the screen, your little square with a picture of you or your name, just something that lets me know that you're there and you're listening. I know everybody doesn't have a camera, and everybody doesn't necessarily want to sit and look at the camera. But I hope that you'll all be there to get the information.
Closing words by Dawn Ski Cooley. Into the world singing. Let us go out into the world singing. Let us go out into the world singing songs that proclaim liberty, songs that turn ashes into garlands, songs that bind up the afflicted and those who mourn, songs that, like oaks, have roots that go deep and stand strong. Let us go out into the world singing. We know these songs. They vibrate through time into our very souls. They are the songs that give us life. They are the songs that give us meaning. They are the songs that give us purpose. Now it is our turn to take these life-giving songs out into the world. Let us go now into the world, singing these songs with voices deep and strong. And may the world join us in praise and in celebration and in love. May it be so.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I am? Still not lonely. Do you know who we are? See we one another clearly. Still we lonely. Do you know who we are? Whoa, so is life what you are. So is life. Whoa, so is life what you are. So is life. Water makes the river wash the mountain. Fire makes the sunlight turn the world round. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain, spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the spirit, truly of the spirit, only can the spirit turn the world around. Whoa, so is life what you are. So is life. Whoa, so is life what you are. you.